the New York Islanders for our down and out series, continuing that today. And they do have a new coach, but when you look at this roster and how they could potentially change it up, there's really not a lot of openings here. Like it feels like it'll take a hockey trade for them to make any sort of significant moves. You look at their UFAs, it's three defensemen who basically played on the bottom pairing all season and two older guys in Chara and Green who you would imagine they're letting walk. The RFAs, Noah Dobson's the big one. And if they decide to go long term with him, you would imagine that eats up a good amount of their $12 million in cap space. But it really does feel like if they want to change the identity of this team and get into a playoff spot next season, they're maybe going to have to shake up their core a little bit. And that might be moving on from a guy like Anthony Beauvillier or even a Josh Bailey type and trying to just get some fresh blood somewhere in this lineup. If you were in charge of the Islanders per se, Chris, what would sort of be your offseason checklist? What do you think they need to do to compete next season?
Yeah, the Islanders. You look at the Islanders, and they've got almost all of their core, almost all of their players signed. Right? They
Yeah.
could take the approach that, hey, we had a bad year. We started on the road for 15 games. We're going to be better next year. Let's roll with the same guys. We'll sign Dobson and done. We'll kick up our feet for the rest of the offseason. I don't think they're going to do that. It's something they could do. They don't actually have a lot of guys to sign. But when you look at the Islanders roster, one thing that strikes you is they are old, and they are locked into long term deals. Guys like Anders Lee and Sezikis and all these guys that have Bailey, they've got 4 or 5, 6 years left on their deals, and these are not going to age well with guys that are already 31, 32, 33. So I think you have to start. You mentioned Beauvillier; he's 25, so he and Barzell are kind
Yeah.
of the young guns on that core. And so if you can start to move maybe one of these older pieces, it's obviously hard with the term they've given out. They might have to stick with them. But I think they have to be really creative and try to shake up this core a little bit because clearly just expecting that next year will be better, even though the team was better in the second half of the season, just expecting that to continue with guys getting older, I'm not convinced that's the strategy. So getting Dobson. Their D is still relatively young with Pelech, Pollock, and Dobson. Um, but yeah, I think if there's a way to move, some of those contracts that are aging and that are long term, I would look to try and do that.
Yeah, like I don't think they're going to be able to move a Peugeot or anything like that or a Kyle Palmieri. They're signed for too long at too big of money for the players that they are now. But that's why I kind of brought up Josh Bailey as an option where, you need to inject some youth into this lineup. Bailey has value. You can maybe ship him to a contender, use the money you save and go out and get someone young in this lineup. You need to try just revive things a little bit. The big question I have, if you're trying to get, younger and faster, is that in Lou Lamoriello's DNA as a GM to go out and do that? Or is he the kind who's just going to say, nope, we run it back with what he have? Like, is he going to be a little stubborn and could that be their downfall ultimately?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you saw with the signings of Palmieri, you're like, why go down that road again? Not that Kyle Palmieri is not a good player, but it just seemed like it was more of the same versus that youth injection that you're talking about. So yeah, I don't know if that's in Lou's DNA or not, but at some point they've
Yep.
got to turn the page on some of these guys, and I think you're right. Bailey's probably a good candidate there. It's somebody with enough value that could probably bring back something that is younger and more of a building block for the Islanders. So it's not going to be easy. I think the Islanders could be better if they just rolled out the same lineup, but again, it's not going to get them to where they ultimately want to be, which is perennial competitor. I think they're on the way down, unfortunately, and so they do need to shake things up.